welcome back to East Africa with me, Rachel Griffith. I am super excited to be sitting with you today. We are continuing to talk about vision, the practical application, practical steps to receiving vision and walking it out. We have already talked about number one, which is connecting with God. God desires to connect with you. He desires to speak to you so that he can fill you with vision, right? We know that you need to hear from him to even have the vision or to fulfill that purpose he's putting in your heart. So connect with him, because in connecting with him and hearing with him also comes faith, which is going to be key important to fulfilling the vision that he's put in your heart. The next thing we talked about was wisdom and strategy. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're also going to talk about the fourth part, which is doing the work. So it's not just about a vision board that you stare at all the time, that you speak to, and you say, I'm going to do this. It's actually going to be doing something. There's always something to be done when God speaks to you. He gives you that wisdom and that strategy, and it's going to be up to you to begin to walk that out and put your hand to it. We talked about Joshua last time and Jericho. And we see this throughout Joshua, actually. We see at the city of Ai, these different strategies unfold where he gains wisdom and insight on something, and then he puts his hand to that thing. When we talked about Jericho, we said that Joshua received a very unusual strategy from the Lord to march around the city one time each day for 6 days. On the seventh day, to go around it 7 times and blow the trumpet, and the walls fell down. Well, if Joshua had only said yes to the Lord, like, when Joshua fellowship with God, and God says, I've given Jericho into your hand. Okay, awesome, God. And then he just went and sat in his tent. Well, what would have happened? Nothing. God will speak. God will give the vision. God will even give you the how to do it in wisdom and the strategy. But it's going to be up to you to say yes and to be able to walk it out. Take those steps, those small steps, big steps, wherever you can do, you start walking that out. The other example that I love, because I said in the last teaching that the Bible gives us examples of people from every walk of life. And that's what I love, because where maybe I'm called to ministry and most of my stories have to do with things for ministry, you know what? You may be called to politics, business, all sorts of different things. So it's important for you to see that God uses this same system with people throughout the Word from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, but he doesn't change. And that's what I love about God. He is consistent with us. And so that we can put faith in the fact that, hey, if it worked for this guy, and if it worked for this guy, you know what? It's going to work for me. And so we saw that. We talked about David also. I mean, David is the same. David, we got a king. We've got Joshua, who's a leader. Now we're going to look at Gideon, who was a kind of a nobody. Kind of an your average guy, right? We can all relate to being, average at some point in our life, right? So Gideon was. And what's interesting about Gideon is that he is living in Israel during the time where the Midianites were in control of that area. So when he steps on the scene, he's actually hiding. He's sleeping in the wine press because he's a fearful person about the Midianites and whatever is going on. I'll read that just to you right here in Judges 6:11. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth tree, which is in Ophrah, which belongs to Joash, the Azarabite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress in order to hide from the Midianites while he's hiding out. You know what I mean? And here appears an angel of the Lord. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord be with you, mighty man of valor." I just love this. mighty man of courage. That's what the angel says to him. Sure doesn't really seem like a courageous person. You know what? What I love about God is that he sees in us, we don't even see in ourselves yet. He sees the potential in us, and he loves us in the place that we're in order to bring us out of that place. Because that's what God desires for us. He desires for us to see ourselves the way that he sees us. And he doesn't quit on us. So he finds Gideon here. The next part of the story all becomes about how Gideon is like, okay, I need a test to see if you're telling the truth to this angel. Test, the fleece, all these things. All right, finally he's like, all right, it's God. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out like you've asked me to do and defeat the Midianites. And then what happens is Gideon gathers about 3,000 men, and the Lord begins to whittle that down. He says, no, it's too many. Whittles it down. And again, no, it's too many. So he has 300 men. Gideon and 300 men. And this is just beautiful because it really shows us God does things in his strength, not in our strength. He does things according to his ability, not our ability. And this is really an example, I think, to us, that it says that the Midianites were more than their camels were more than the sands of the sea, of the stars and all. I mean, basically, there's thousands of Midianites, okay? Thousands and thousands. And so we whittle it down to 300 Israelites. And when they come to the camp of the Midianites, Gideon hears a dream that a man has had in the interpretation of that dream. And in that, Gideon receives wisdom and a strategy from God. That wisdom and that strategy, again, is very unusual. And it's to give every man a pot, and in that pot is a torch. Then they're going to take a trumpet, and they're going to surround. He splits them into 3 groups, so like 100, 100, 100. They surround the Midianites. And Gideon says, on my cue, basically, break the pot, light the torch, and blow the trumpet. At the end, say, the sword of the Lord in Gideon, and scream it. Listen, this is wisdom from God. This is a strategy to defeat thousands of men with 300. If you think that you don't know how to accomplish what God has put in your heart to do, I'm telling you today that God has the wisdom and the strategy to do it. Hands down, he does. And you need to surrender your heart and ask him for it today. Because what happened when they did this, the Midianites turned on themselves. It says God turned the swords against them, their own swords against each other. They thought they were being attacked from every side, and they went crazy. And you know what? They destroyed the Midianites. God took one boy who couldn't even see in himself what God saw in him, said yes to the Lord, operated in hearing the interpretation of that dream to connect with God and receive wisdom and strategy and to actually do it. They went forth. They didn't just sit there and say, well, if God wants to do it, you know what, let him defeat the Midianites. Let him do it. Let him strike them with lightning. No, they didn't. They took the pots, they took the trumpets, and they said yes to doing the work. And you know what? Glorious victory. And that is what God has for you. If you don't know what to do, God knows what to do. It's not always the way that you think it's going to happen. And that's why we have to remove our own natural thinking. We have to say yes to the God kind of thinking that he has for us. All right, you guys. I'm so blessed to be sitting with you again today. Hope you send your prayer requests on WhatsApp. We would absolutely love to hear from you and connect with you. Have a blessed week, and I will see you next time.